The Rules Committee will come to order. We're here for consideration of H.R. 3606, the Jumpstart Our Business Startups Act. I guess that sounds like JOBS to me, so I think that's the idea behind the acronym. And I'd like to say that we don't quite have a quorum present yet, but the minority has graciously agreed to let us proceed. I'd like to first extend a welcome and introduce the people who are here. Congressman Schweikert just said that they've become famous, and that wasn't their desire at all. These are the very proud people with the International Republican Institute who have just been able to come out of Egypt. And Sam LaHood is, of course, the son of our former colleague and is head of the program, and he is here with a number of his colleagues, and so we've just had a glass of champagne. I didn't invite any of my other colleagues in there for fear that the bottle would have been drained immediately if we did it, so we were able to share that and to say that we have a very challenging and interesting relationship ahead for what is an important tie with the people of Egypt. And in light of that, for us to have these, please, Mr. Frank, join us here at the table. I'm just introducing the team from the International Republican Institute who has just come out of Egypt. They have had a very challenging time over the past, really since the first of the year. And so we appreciate the service that you all have provided, and we wanted you to have a chance to see democracy in action here. So welcome to the Rules Committee, where it's always at its best. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Congratulations and welcome. Mr. Hastings.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for introducing them. And as you know, and others, as a big supporter of IRI and NDI, I personally compliment all of you for the extraordinariness of your work. And as a frequent visitor to Egypt, I'm mindful of the strong undertakings that you have made, as well as the chairman of this committee in trying to advance democracy not only there but elsewhere. And Sam, on the day that you arrived, I talked with your dad earlier and told him, unrelated to this business, told him to give you a big hug for me. So if he didn't, then I'm telling you now I told him. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McGovern.
If I could just say to you, I co-chair the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission, and I appreciate the incredible work that all of you do, and I'm happy that you're back here safely. And the only thing I would add is that when Mr. Dreyer gave you champagne, if you came to my office, you'd have beer and scotch. So anyway, thank you.
But there's probably none left. Thank you all very much. And we're here for, as I said, consideration of H.R. 3606, and we're happy to welcome the chairwoman of the subcommittee and the ranking member of the full committee. And so please welcome back to the Rules Committee, Ms. Capito. And as you know, your prepared statement will appear in the record in its entirety, and we welcome your summary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's nice to be back in the Rules Committee. It's looking better and better every time I come back for the brief 2 years that I served. The Jobs Act, it is called the Jobs Act, Jumpstart Our Business Startups. It's a conglomeration of 6 bills. I'm just going to briefly state the obvious, that in order for us to be more competitive, we need to get our small business owners in a position, and entrepreneurs, where they can start their creative ideas moving and create the jobs that over 60% of the jobs are created in small businesses. And I think we all in our individual states and across the country have incubators and startups, and sometimes the red tape and uncertainty from Washington prevents a good idea from taking root and becoming a small business, or it prevents an entrepreneur from taking that risk. So this bill is it will increase capital formations, spur the growth of startups and small businesses, and pave the way for small businesses to go public and create more jobs. Of the 6 bills, several of them have already passed out of the full House, several out of the full Financial Services Committee. But in those votes on all 6 bills, only 32 members opposed the bills over the course of the 6 bills. So I think it shows, this is the question I got when I was home, can you do anything together? I think this is one of the things that we can do together. The President certainly addressed this issue in the State of the Union. I can remember him saying, please put a bill on my desk for about 6 or 7 issues. This was one of them. And he has already, 3 of the bills that we're going to consider, 3 of the bills within the larger bill were part of his jobs package. And so with that, there are 25 amendments that have been filed, aside from germaneness issues, which I'll leave that into the discretion, as always, to the Rules Committee. We certainly want to have an open rule and have all those amendments considered as ordered. And as I said, I think this is a bipartisan bill. It goes to the heart of getting those great ideas. Yesterday, there was a reception. I don't know if anybody else went, but Michael Dell was there, who created Dell Computers in his dorm room 20 years ago or 25 years ago. Had he had some of the obstacles in front of him today that maybe weren't there at the time, maybe we wouldn't have had somebody who's now employing 100,000 people in his company. So with that, I would yield back my time and ask that my formal statement be accepted in the record.
Mr. Frank, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree we should pass this bill, although I am not quite as worked up over it as my colleague. I wouldn't say it goes to the heart of the economy, probably around the wrist somewhere, but it does no harm. I think people tended to exaggerate it, but it's a good thing to try. I note there are several amendments. I appreciate the chairwoman of the subcommittee urging for that there be an open rule. I would say this, in addition to there being an open rule, and I would hope all the amendments that are germane will put in order, because there's a little duplication. It is not like we're that busy. So it did seem to me that if we had all the amendments in order, we still would be, a couple of days short of a full work week, and therefore we ought to go ahead with it. I would say this, Mr. Chairman, I would be disappointed if every amendment got this 10-minute rapid fire. Some of them calling for studies, that would be appropriate. But for example, the amendment number 6. Amendment number 6 of my colleagues, Mr. Ellis and Mr. Capua and Mr. Lynch, about say on pay, I think deserves 40 minutes. The amendment by Mr. Hines and Mr. Capuano to lower the gross revenue cap from $1 billion to $750, I would think at least 20. There's an amendment by Mr. Miller and Mr. Schweikert. Now that one may be about to be accepted as bipartisan, but if it was contested, amendment number 9 should get at least 20 minutes, in my judgment. Mr. Miller, Mr. Brad Miller, Mr. Watt have an amendment which I disagree with about covering them fully under state law, but it's an important subject and only get at least 20 minutes of debate. Similarly, Mr. Peters has one on the number of employees, number 4. And finally, Ms. Waters and Mr. Capuano have a very significant one about the publication of research, which I think should get 40 minutes. Now, in a couple of these cases, the amendment by Mr. Miller and Mr. Watt, I believe the administration would oppose. But on the other amendments I've talked about, the administration, I believe, is generally neutral. That is, they are all within the scope of the general purpose. But I, again, hope that we will not just see 10 minutes on amendments 1, 6, 10, 4, and 12, and 9. I think 10 minutes would not be adequate, and as I said, I think we could fully accommodate it. With that,
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Frank. I appreciate that. One of the things that we want to do is we want to make as many amendments in order as possible. And I recognize, and you've spoken before here, about the need to extend debate time, and obviously there are always scheduling challenges. But I think that you want us to make as many of the amendments in order as we possibly can. It's my hope that this committee will, in fact, make in order the amendments that aren't, duplicative. I mean, we plan to
I appreciate it, Chair. I would say this. I would hope there wouldn't be a trade-off. We're talking about the bill coming up tomorrow, are we? Or, we're here Thursday. People have to work till, I hope members are not afraid of working in the dark.
Right.
It's only dark outside. It's not dark inside. Yeah. So I don't think we have to get off by the middle of the afternoon. And, yes, we should have all the amendments, but to do 10 minutes on all of these would be a travesty.
No, I understand. I understand that. And again, we had 25 amendments that were submitted to us, and so in our quest to try and make as many of those in order as we possibly can, I think that to ensure that members have an opportunity to voice their opinion on an amendment is the important thing. Well,
can I just say, Mr. Chairman, and I obviously differ some with Ms. Capito, but let me defer to her. on something that goes to the heart of our economy, I don't think 2 days would be out of the question for debating in the Congress.
Well, thanks for your recommendations on scheduling. I appreciate that, and we'll try again as you've thrown out some of the amendments that we're hoping that this committee will make in order so that we can have a free-flowing debate. Ms. Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions, but I appreciate very much the bill being brought to us and it going to the floor. I do think maybe it's not the wrist, maybe it's not the heart, but it certainly is a very important bill for us to pass. Thank you.
I would resist the temptation to debate anatomy with the gentleman from North Carolina.
Well, first of all, I would support an open rule, and in terms of scheduling challenges, we don't have any scheduling challenges. I mean, we finished today at 2:00.
Well, the gentleman yield, I will explain why it is that we did that. I don't know if you know, but across the country, there are lots of members who happen to be in their districts because today is Election Day, and that played a role in the decision. We weren't going to have any votes at all today, and we've just had these few votes on the floor based on that.
There's no primary tomorrow, no primary the next day, and then we're off all next week. So the idea of saying that for all members to be heard, that we can only limit people to a small amount of time. And the other thing, too, is, again, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle talked about the importance of a wide-open process where, I remember when we were in the majority, they would remind us that pre-printing requirements were, stifled debate, that people might listen to the debate and want to offer an amendment on the floor, and, if we have anything other than open rule, they won't be able to do that. So I would hope we have an open process. The other thing I would say about this bill is that I guess it's okay, but I think it is a stretch, to call a grab bag of suspension bills already passed a major jobs bill. And what I had hoped we would be debating this week, and again, with all due respect to the chairwoman who was here testifying, was a transportation bill. If you want to talk about a jobs bill and putting people back to work, we need a long-term service transportation bill. And instead, we're doing this, and and there's even a little bit of political, there's even some politicking going on here. I guess one part of this package, my Republican friends literally took Representative Himes' bill, Himes of Connecticut, that had already passed the House, removed an SEC study, and slapped Rep. Quayle's name on it so he could go home and brag to voters that he passed some legislation. I think, Congressman Hines, there is something to be said for pride of authorship, and just because he's a Democrat doesn't mean he shouldn't have the right to be able to bring his, get credit for legislation that he had already championed. But in any event, I don't really have any questions on the fact that I think we should be doing other things besides this, Mr. Frank.
I would just add, I think you're right about giving credit in that context. Mr. Himes had an original co-author, Mr. Schweikert, who also disappeared from authorship in that magic
I think both of them deserve.
Yes, they both
of them deserve credit for this, and I don't quite understand why that happened. I guess I do understand why it happened, but it kind of makes people cynical about the process when those things.
Well, it's a lesson for the people here to watch democracy in action.
Yeah, but in any event, this is what it is, and I hope someday we get to a transportation bill, something that can create a lot of jobs.
Can I just say, Mr. Chairman, and also on behalf of my colleagues, we get these conflicts. Roll calls were called for the Financial Service Committee at 3:30. So,
okay. Let me just before you leave, let me just see if there are any members who would like to raise questions of Mr. Frank before he leaves.
Mr. Schweikert,
and Ms. Capito. So I guess we'll try and just as quickly as possible because members of the committee have a right to ask you a question. Mr. Woodall. Mr. Hastings, Mr. Nugent, Mr. Polis, Mr. Scott, Mr. Webster, thanks to both of you for being here.
Could I make one last statement that we were just informed that the administration's position is that they will be supporting this bill, so I'll be very interestingly see when the President signs this bill, if he touts this as a job creation bill that I have so excitingly, I guess, portrayed before the committee. And with that, thank you very much.
The gentleman yield, I have no doubt that he'll probably exaggerate too.
Yeah. Thank you very much for being here. We're happy to welcome two of my great friends, Mr. Schweikert and Ms. Waters. And let me say to both of you that as I look at the amendments that we're hoping to make in order, I'm including both of your amendments in my request that the committee make them in order. And I've always appreciated your, please come forward, Mr. Schweikert. So let me say that I've always appreciated your kind words about the number of amendments that have been made in order since I've had the gavel back here, juxtaposed the way the things have been in the past, Ms. Waters. But let's begin with you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Chairman, and let me say yes, I have thanked you in the past for having an open mind and making amendments in order quite differently than perhaps had been done in the past, and I appreciate today, even before my testimony, you're indicating that you've already decided to make my amendments in order.
Well, it's up to the committee. I'm just going to recommend that.
Well, I know the recommendation, I think, carries a lot of weight, so I'm hopeful they will listen to you today.
So too. Thank you.
Mine are not complicated amendments. These two amendments have to do with the fact that all of us, on both sides of the aisle, are anxious to do what we can for small and emerging businesses. And in the financial services community, we are dealing with, in this amendment, with these emerging IPOs and how the research is done. We oftentimes have the brokers and dealers who are doing the underwriting, doing the research also. And so it can be hyped quite a bit. And we're just asking that you file it with the SEC so that they can see what you're doing. While we want to help these emerging businesses, we don't want to mislead people about what these new companies or these emerging companies are and what they're selling. In addition to that, it's the same thing with the pre- and post-communications on these IPOs. We want to make sure that we don't have the kind of hype that we had during the period of time when there was a lot of hype going on in Silicon Valley and other places about IPOs and people were being misled. Simply file your pre- and post-communications with the SEC so that the SEC can understand exactly what you're saying about them and they're not misleading. While we want to encourage emerging firms and we want people to invest in them, we want this to be a part of revitalizing our economy. We don't want to mislead people and get into a situation where, sometime later we're saying we're sorry, if only you had had the information, if only we had made sure that what the underwriters were doing, instead of acting in their own economic interest because they had these accounts and they could probably get more, that they were being fair with the would-be investing companies. And that's what it's all about.
Thank you very much.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Schweikert. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I believe it's called out as Amendment Number 3. It's ultimately, you'll see this as a study, but there is a concept out there between a record holder and a beneficial interest. If we're about to change the number of shareholders that can be offered out before having to do a registration, who ultimately, if you were a broker-dealer, do you represent dozens of beneficial holders underneath that one? We don't know if this is actually a problem. This was actually an issue that was brought up by, I believe it's Mr. Capuano, and it seemed a fair one to say, all right, let's ask the SEC within 120 days to tell us, is this actually an issue within the SEC's current authority to create the definition, or is it something that actually is not actually a problem? So instead of legislating it, it seemed appropriate to define if it's actually a problem, and if it is, then the SEC already has authority to deal with it.
Good. Thank you very much. You both made it very clear. Ms. Fox.
I have no questions, but I want to thank Ms. Waters for being here. And last week she was generous enough on the floor to make positive comments about me, even though we disagreed on a bill. And I want to thank her for being here today.
Thank you so very much.
What did she say?
She said while she liked me, she didn't like my amendments.
I just want to get the...
What I didn't tell him, Ms. Fox, was we're good traveling buddies. All right, okay.
Mr. McGovern.
I always say complimentary things about Dr. Fox publicly. And privately, too, I should say. Ms. Waters, I support making your amendments in order, and Mr. Schweikert is saying with yours, and I want to congratulate you for the part of H.R. 3606 that you and Mr. Himes wrote and passed, and you're not getting credit for. But I think somebody should acknowledge that. I yield back my time.
Mr. Woodall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd say to my freshman colleague, he's getting lots of credit. I see his name used in warm and friendly ways throughout my district for his work here, and it's been one of my pleasures to be his colleague.
Mr. Whittle, apparently I need to spend more time in your district.
Well, you're welcome. Welcome in Georgia anytime. It's a busy day down there today. But, you know, one of the things we've struggled with as freshmen is figuring out how to make an impact here. And so many folks come to Washington and think, golly, I'm a congressman, I should go legislate. And it seems like what you're saying here is you have some concerns and you could go out and legislate, but you're not sure whether you'd be helping or hurting, and there may be a better way to get it done. Could you tell me a little bit more about that process?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Whittle, it's one of those things where we know it's a theoretical problem, but we've actually even looked in the literature and haven't actually found it to exist. So, and the concept is fairly simple. You're the broker-dealer. You actually count as a shareholder. Should you count as a shareholder, or how about if you have a number of investors in your broker-dealer network? Should they all count as individuals? Well, if they do, would that also destroy the benefit of expanding the number of shareholders for this capital formation for small businesses? So it is sort of a yin and yang on this. We need to know if it's a real problem, and if it does it actually make any difference to investor protection?
I appreciate your thoughtfulness, and Mr. Chairman, I hope we'll be able to learn something from that model. If we don't necessarily have to legislate it, we could figure out if it's actually a problem first, and then move from there. If it does turn out to be a problem, I hope we'll be able to support the Schweikert legislation to correct it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I don't have any questions. I support both amendments, and I'd like to ask unanimous consent to admit the statement of the administration policy and let it be known that the exaggeration has begun.
Without objection, the statement of administration policy will be included in the record. Mr. Nugent. Mr. Polis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These are excellent bills. I'm a co-sponsor of the original bill as well, this bill that combines them. I've supported the measures that have come up as well. It won't turn around our economy on a dime, but these are all very constructive steps towards the flow of capital, particularly the flow of capital to our small businesses and our growth businesses that offer over the medium and long term to create jobs in this country. So I look forward to a discussion of the amendments on the floor, some of which I think are helpful and some of which are not, and hopefully to seeing this combination bill through and encouraging the Senate to take it up. And I yield back.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sessions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate not only the panel that's here, but that has been here. And today what we are looking at is the equivalent of a bipartisan job creation day that we will have, or week that we will have, where we're focusing on not only jobs, but the opportunity to make this into law. The best part about this is several of these bills, perhaps three of them, have been passed evidently by the House. Yes. Time to go back again. Jobs. It's a little bit early to say we have too many jobs in this country and we don't need to worry about job creation. There are our men and women, our children who are growing up every day, people who are trying to live their lives, gain the American dream, and I'm glad we're working together today. Thank you for being here. I have no question at this time. You'll back my time.
Mr. Webster. Thanks to you both very much for being here. Before you leave, I'd just like to say that this week marks the 50th birthday of our friend from Arizona, Mr. Schweikert, so we want to wish you a very happy birthday, Mr. Schweikert.
Thank you for mentioning very young man.
And thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that will conclude the hearing portion for consideration of 3606, and the chair will be in receipt of a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move the committee grant H.R. 3606, the Reopening American Capital Markets to Emerging Growth Companies Act of 2011, a structured rule. Rule provides 1 hour general debate equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Financial Services. Rule waives all points of order against consideration of the bill. Rule provides an amendment in the nature of a substitute consistent of the text of the Rules Committee print 112-17 shall be considered as adopted, and the bill as amended shall be considered as original text for the purpose of amendment and shall be considered as read. The rule waives all points of order against provision of the bill as amended. Rule makes in order only those further amendments printed in the Rules Committee report. Each such report may be offered only in the order printed in the report, may be offered only by a member designated in the report, shall be considered as read, shall be debatable for time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent, and opponent shall not be subject to amendment and shall not be subject to demand for division of the question of rule, waives all points of order against the amendments. Printed in the report, finally, the rule provides one motion to recommit with or without
You've heard the motion of the gentleman from Dallas. Let me just say that we recommend that 17 amendments be made in order, 13 amendments offered by Democrats, 3 amendments offered by Republicans, and 1 bipartisan amendment. And as I said, we've made most all the amendments in order, just dealing primarily with the issue of duplication, which was a challenge here. Are there any amendments? Mr. McGovern.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment to the rule. I move that the committee grant H.R. 3606 an open rule so that all members have the opportunity to offer amendments to the bill on the floor.
Thank you very much. You've heard the gentleman's motion. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it. Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Sessions. No. Mr. Sessions, no. Ms. Fox. No. Ms. Fox, no. Mr. Bishop. Mr. Woodall. No. Mr. Woodall, no. Mr. Nugent. No. Mr. Nugent, no. Mr. Scott. No. Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Webster. No. Mr. Webster, no. Ms. Slaughter. Aye. Ms. Slaughter, aye. Mr. McGovern.
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Mr. Hastings. Aye. Mr. Hastings, aye. Mr. Polis. Aye. Mr. Polis, aye. Mr. Chairman.
No.
Mr. Chairman, no.
Clerk will report the total.
4 yeas, 7 nays.
And the motion is not agreed to. Are there further amendments? If not, the vote occurs in the motion of the gentleman from Dallas. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. And Mr. Sessions will be managing this rule for the majority. And Mr. Polis for the minority. We don't expect any further meetings this week. Thank you all very much and hope you all have a great evening. Without objection, the committee stands adjourned.